Here's something that sounds completely backwards. Many people become wealthier in the decade after paying off their mortgage than they ever were during their highest earning years. And the reason has almost nothing to do with the mortgage itself. It's not about interest rates. It's not about equity. It's not even really about the money. It's about something happening deep inside your brain. A psychological switch that flips the moment that final payment clears, and once you understand it, you'll never think about debt, risk, or money the same way again. Now, here's the controversial part. Some financial experts will tell you that paying off your mortgage early is actually a mistake, that you should invest the difference, that mathematically, the numbers don't always add up in your favor. And you know what? They're not wrong, but they're missing something enormous, something the spreadsheet can't measure. And that's exactly what this video is about. Because the people who truly understand what happens after the mortgage is gone, they're not just making a financial decision, they're making a life decision. So let's get into it. Here's how most people think about a mortgage. You buy a house. You sign a 25 or 30-year loan. Every single month, a chunk of your income disappears. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you file it under necessary and move on. Most people don't actually feel the weight of a mortgage. Not consciously. It's like wearing a heavy coat every day for 30 years. After a while, you forget you have it on. You just live your life around it. You take certain jobs. You stay in certain cities. You pass on certain opportunities. Not because you chose to, but because the coat was there and you forgot to question it. Here's what that actually looks like in numbers. If your mortgage payment is $1,500 a month, that's $18,000 a year. Over 30 years, once you factor in interest, you might send $400,000 to $600,000 to a lender. And during every single one of those months, that money was spoken for before you even touched it. But here's the part nobody talks about. Research in behavioral economics shows that debt-related financial obligations don't just drain your wallet. They drain your cognitive bandwidth. A Princeton study found that financial stress from fixed obligations money that you owe before the month even begins actually reduces effective decision-making capacity, in some cases equivalent to losing a full night's sleep. Every month. For 30 years. And you don't even notice it's happening until the day it stops. Now let's talk about the debate that divides financial people into two camps. Camp 1 says, pay off your mortgage as fast as possible. Own your home outright. Eliminate the obligation. Reduce your risk. Sleep better. Camp 2 says, that's emotional thinking, not rational thinking. If your mortgage rate is 4%, and the stock market historically returns 8%, you should invest the difference mathematically. You'll come out ahead. Both of these arguments are completely valid, and that's actually the problem. Because the real answer isn't found in a spreadsheet. It's found in what happens to a human being psychologically, emotionally, behaviorally, when a massive financial obligation disappears from their life. And the research is fascinating. Meet Sarah. She's 52 years old. She spent 28 years in the same corporate job. Not because she loved it, because she had a mortgage, 2 kids in school, and a monthly payment that demanded she show up. She was good at her job, promoted 3 times. But there was always this other idea sitting in the back of her mind. A consulting business she'd been sketching out on napkins for 15 years. The month she made her final mortgage payment, something shifted. She didn't quit the next day. But within 6 months, she handed in her notice. She started the business. She worked from home. She set her own hours. 2 years later, her consulting income exceeded her corporate salary. Was that because of the extra $1,500 a month? No, it was because for the first time in nearly 3 decades, the floor was solid. The home couldn't be taken from her. The baseline was covered. And that meant for the first time she could afford to take a real risk. Sarah's story isn't unusual. It's actually a pattern. And there's a name for what happened to her brain. In just a moment, I'm going to show you the single psychological shift that makes some people dramatically wealthier after paying off their mortgage, while others free up the exact same cash flow and end up with nothing to show for it 5 years later. The difference comes down to one thing, and once you see it, you'll understand exactly which category you're currently set up for. There's a concept in behavioral psychology called threat rigidity. When humans feel threatened financially, physically, socially, our brains narrow their focus. We stop exploring. We stop being creative. We default to safe, predictable, survival mode behavior. This is useful if you're running from a predator. It's not useful if you're trying to build wealth. And here's the thing about a mortgage that nobody says out loud. A mortgage payment is a low-grade, permanent financial threat. It's not scary enough to panic about, but it's consistent enough that your brain files it as a risk that must be managed every single month. Which means, for 30 years, a portion of your thinking, your imagination, your ambition, your tolerance for risk is quietly sitting in threat rigidity mode. Now picture it this way. Imagine your monthly income as a river flowing toward you. For 30 years, a large pipe runs through the middle of that river, diverting $1,500 every single month away before you ever see it. The pipe doesn't ask permission. It just takes. The day your mortgage ends, that pipe is removed. The full river flows to you. But here's what's fascinating. It's not just the extra water. It's that your brain finally registers. The threat is gone. The mandatory drain no longer exists. And when that happens, the psychological shift is immediate and measurable. Studies in financial psychology show that people who eliminate their largest fixed debt obligation report not just improved financial well-being, but improved clarity of thinking, higher tolerance for calculated risk, and greater willingness to pursue entrepreneurial or career changes. In other words, your brain gets an upgrade. You stop thinking like someone protecting a position, and you start thinking like someone building one. But here's what I promised you earlier. The reason some people thrive after paying off their mortgage and others don't. Because freedom without a plan is just chaos with a nicer house. Some people make their final mortgage payment, and within 18 months, they've filled that $1,500 gap with car payments, lifestyle upgrades, and subscriptions they didn't need. The freed-up cash flow silently disappears into consumption, and 5 years later, they're wondering why nothing has really changed. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it's the silent killer of financial momentum. The people who use this moment to genuinely transform their financial lives, they have something ready before the mortgage is gone. They already know what the freed cash flow is going to do. They've thought about it, planned it, decided it. And the moment that payment ends, the money gets redirected, not absorbed. So here's the question that actually matters. If $1,500 or whatever your mortgage payment is suddenly freed up in your life tomorrow, what specific thing would you do with it? Not a vague answer, a specific one. Because the people who answer that question clearly before it happens are the ones who end up actually doing something with it. And the people who don't have an answer, they become the lifestyle inflation statistic. So keep that question in mind as we get to the practical part. Here's what the people who genuinely transform their financial lives after a mortgage payoff actually do. First, they decide before it happens. They don't wait for the final payment to figure out where the money goes. They already have the destination locked in. Whether that's an investment account, a business fund, or a rental property down payment, the money has a job the moment it arrives. Second, they use the identity shift intentionally. This is huge. When your largest financial obligation disappears, your self-concept changes. You stop being someone with a mortgage and start being someone who owns their home outright. That might sound minor, but psychologically, it matters. People who recognize this shift and lean into it, who consciously think, I can take bigger risks now, outperform those who don't notice the shift at all. Third, they recognize what just happened to their cost of living. When your minimum monthly obligation drops, your income doesn't need to work as hard just to survive. That gap between what you earn and what you actually need is where investment capital lives, where a business gets started, where a career pivot becomes possible. The people who see that gap clearly and use it deliberately are the ones who build real wealth in the decade that follows. And fourth, they protect themselves from the one thing that can undo all of it. They don't let lifestyle inflation quietly reclaim what they just won. Every dollar the mortgage freed up gets a destination. No exceptions. Here's something worth sitting with for a moment. For most people, their mortgage is the largest financial obligation of their entire lives. And for 25 or 30 years, a piece of that home technically, legally belongs to someone else, to a lender, to a bank, to an institution that can, under the right circumstances, take it from you. The last mortgage payment isn't just a transaction. For a lot of people, it's the first morning of their adult life where nobody, no bank, no lender, no institution has a legal claim on the place where their family sleeps. That's not just financial. That's something deeper. And when that weight lifts, when the brain finally registers that the biggest threat in your financial life has been eliminated, it doesn't just feel good. It unlocks you. The businesses get started. The risks get taken. The career moves get made. The investments get built. Not because the money suddenly appeared, but because the permission finally did. Most people believe that a mortgage payoff is the end of a financial journey. It's not. It's the day your money finally stops paying for your past and starts building your future. That's the change nobody warns you about. And now you know it's coming.